to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. I'm Pete Mezzetti. My guest this evening is Fran Rabinowitz, who's the Executive Director of the Connecticut Superintendents Association. Fran, welcome. How are you?
I'm fine, Pete. I'm happy to be here.
Well, thanks for coming down. Fran, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became Executive Director of CAPSS.
So, I've had a long career in education.
Well, let's start there.
Okay. I started as a elementary teacher in Bridgeport.
Okay.
And I spent the greatest part of my career in Bridgeport as a teacher. When the mastery test first came in, I was in charge of all of the testing for the district, from packing the boxes to doing all the analyses.
Oh boy.
I was in charge of teaching and learning for a while, and then went to the State Department, worked with Betty Sternberg as Associate Commissioner.
Okay.
And then I decided that I wanted to get back in the field and be a superintendent. So I applied to Hamden. I was superintendent there for 7 years. Okay. I went back to Bridgeport as interim superintendent for 3 years, and then decided to retire to take care of my grandson, who was 3 months old at the time.
Okay.
And I did that for a few months, and I was approached about this job at CAPSS, Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents, and they said, you know, we really think you ought to apply for this. Well, you have to know, Pete, there's never been a woman in the CAPSS executive director position.
Really?
And CAPSS is about 100 years old. And so I applied, was very excited about the type of work that it would be,
yes.
But I never thought I would get the position. Okay. And I did.
Nice.
So I will have been there 5 years in July.
Okay. Obviously you like it.
Yes, I do.
And you guys,
I love it, actually.
And you guys work with all of the superintendents all across the state of Connecticut.
Yes. Yes.
169 towns.
169 towns, and it's so interesting because when I first got there, I didn't really know where some of the towns were even, you know, in the eastern part of the western part.
Right.
And it's so interesting how much you learn. I think I know all of the superintendents now, especially with COVID.
Oh yeah.
I was on all of their area calls every week, and it's wonderful to have a real broad look at the state.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, you and I have a mutual friend in Bob Rader.
Oh, Bob Rader's.
Oh, Bob's one of the best.
Yes, wonderful man. I've known Bob for many, many years. I first met him when I was Associate Commissioner. And he certainly has led the boards of education in the state for a very long time. And I know he's going to retire this year.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, Pete, Bob may retire from this, but he's going to be active.
He's not going to retire.
He's not going to retire.
He's not going to sit down and say, "What am I going to do now?"
No, he is not. I'm sure he has a plan. He's very passionate about many things, and I'm sure he'll pursue them.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
He's come on with me a bunch of times. He's always very hospitable and very nice. Now, Fran, let me ask you this: as far as how did you guys with CAPSS handle the pandemic in the beginning to where we are now? I'm sure you're happy everybody's back in school.
I'm thrilled that everybody's back in school. I'm thrilled. I mean, that was the most wonderful day. And I would say to you that in the beginning, Pete, I remember getting a call from a superintendent. I believe it was a superintendent in West Hartford who told me, I'm going to close schools, because of the pandemic coming forward. And I think he was the first district out of the gate. And I was very taken back because I thought we were going to get this under control.
Right.
And I said, oh my goodness. And then all of a sudden, we were all closed within a few days.
Yeah.
And it's been an incredible learning experience for all of us, Pete.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of many of the accomplishments during the pandemic, in spite of what we were faced with.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm sure you know as well as I do, Zoom meetings are no fun.
Oh, no.
No.
Zoom meetings are, I remember a time during the pandemic, honestly, Pete, of being on Zoom for 12, 14 hours a day.
Oh, yeah.
It was that crazy. I'm still on Zoom, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Because people have found, like for committees and that type of thing, that it's more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't have to travel.
Nope.
You can get a lot done.
Absolutely.
I see a place for it, but I also see a place for in-person meetings, because you can read body language and expressions, etc.
Absolutely. Now, as far as moving forward from the pandemic, where are we going?
Well, I think that what we want to be sure of is that we don't leave behind what we've learned. And when I say that, I'm not a fan of complete remote learning. Right. I'm really not. I think that there's nothing that comes close to an effective teacher and a child relationship.
Absolutely.
But I think there are possibilities for it. For example, I have a teacher that can teach Mongolian. You have a teacher that can teach Japanese.
Right.
We can bring those teachers together and work. And students from my district can come to your district and learn those languages. Also, when I was in Bridgeport, honestly, for a couple of my years, I could not get an advanced physics teacher. They weren't available. Really? But I would have loved to have been able to set my kids up with kids in Fairfield.
Exactly. And like you just said, remote learning as compared to in-classroom learning, you can probably learn a lot more in the classroom with the student teaching rather than you can, because I'm sure on Zoom, I'm sure if you're an educator and you're teaching a class through Zoom, it's a lot harder than it looks.
It is incredibly difficult, and I'm proud of what the educators were able to do. And I didn't teach during the pandemic.
No.
I had Zoom.
Right.
But I observed many of these teachers and what they learned very, very quickly, Pete. They learned so quickly how to transition, how to break into small groups, how to be aware of whether the child was engaged. They did amazing work.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure that they had to make sure that the child was engaged and not just sitting there with their cameras paying attention, but doing.
Well, some of it was really hard because I talked to a lot of teachers with the high school people, the high school teachers, and they would say, the child was on mute and the camera was off. Yeah, right. Is the child there or not there?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? When you called on them, they didn't answer or whatever, so it was tough.
Yeah, no, and that's fine.
By the way, I meant to say Mandarin. Your district might have Mandarin.
That's fine.
That's it.
Okay. Mandarin,
yes.
All right.
Yes.
And as far as the in-person learning is compared to Zoom learning?
So listen, I think there's a place for, like I said, there's a place for remote learning in our classrooms today. I think there's ways that we can use teachers in a remote way. but nothing takes the place of a class of kids in front of you
No.
with an effective teacher where the kids can interact.
Yep.
And education is so much more than just delivering content.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? It's growing the whole child.
Right.
It's doing the social emotional learning with the child.
Right.
It's the child learning from the child that sits next to him or her.
Exactly.
That's all of that is part of the culture of a classroom, which is second to none.
Absolutely. Now, as far as CAPSS, we didn't talk about this during my opening. We probably should have. What exactly do you guys do as far as outreach and some of the programs that you guys offer?
So, lots of people ask that. It's we have 169 superintendents throughout the state. 167 belong to CAPSS. It's they can. It's not a mandate,
Nope.
but they choose to belong.
Right.
I think they see the value.
Right.
We do a lot of work in terms of advocacy for kids. When the legislature is meeting, we weigh in on all of the bills. Spend a lot of time testifying.
Mm-hmm.
I work very, very, very closely with the commissioner at the State Department of Ed, and work with her in terms of where she may want to move on curriculum or programs, etc. I also do a lot of independent supportive superintendents, and I watch very carefully what's going on in districts between superintendents and boards, and try to intervene if I can, if there are issues. But I would say, by and large, our main and primary focus is what's good for kids in Connecticut, and how can we advocate for that?
Absolutely. And actually, you and I, besides Bob Rader, you and I have another mutual friend in Jan Peruccio, who's the old
Jan's one of my
superintendent.
favorite superintendents.
Absolutely.
And she's on my executive board.
Oh, is she? Okay.
She is, first of all, she's just a solidly wonderful person.
Oh, yeah.
But she's an excellent leader. And you know what? You know what Jan does? One of the best I've seen is she involves her team. Her teachers love her because she brings them in and really, really listens to their perspective, their point of view.
Yeah, I saw she was here. She was here not long ago, and I talked to her recently, and she was like, "I want to come on again." Okay, I can do that. She's always very welcoming with me, and anytime I call her, I'll if I have a question or I see something in one of the local papers about the Board of Education, I'll shoot her an email. She'll either get back to me or she'll say, "Hey, call me. I can explain in more detail," because if you're not understanding because it's something hard to understand or because you don't live in the town, just let me know. She's always very nice.
Always
to me.
Available.
Yeah.
Always available to me.
Yeah.
I'll text her and say, "Jan, can you talk to me about something?" And she's right there.
Yeah,
always.
Would you mind sticking around for another segment?
No, not at all.
We'll be right back.
You matter.
You matter.
You matter.
And your words matter too.
Your words matter.
What you say in the hallways at school or in the student section at a game matters.
Words can be hurtful.
Words can be offensive.
Words can leave scars.
Words can also inspire.
Support
and uplift.
You and your words.
Are they both important?
As a matter of fact, yes.
Hey world, I have a quick message. It's about safe driving. All right, let's go. Anytime you're driving, have the seatbelt buckled tight. Both hands on the wheel and your phone out of sight. When not in your hand, trying to text somebody back. Because if you do, your car might get smacked. The moral of the story, just put your phone down. The people on the road will stay safe and sound. Put your phone down, put your phone down. People on the road will stay safe and sound. Yeah.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. I'm Pete Mezzetti, sitting here with Fran Rabinowitz, who's the Executive Director of CAPSS. Fran, welcome back.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
I'm happy to be here.
Well, thanks for sticking around. So we were talking a little bit about in the first segment, before we went into the break, exactly what you guys do with CAPSS. Maybe we can open up this segment, maybe explaining a little bit more in detail of what positions you guys play as far as in each role of your outreach.
I can certainly tell you.
Sure.
I mean, the number one position and the number one mission and vision for CAPSS is a quality education for every child in Connecticut, success for every child. Doesn't matter if they're in a rural, urban, or suburban district. That's our main focus, and that requires a whole lot because what you need to do is engage with stakeholders, engage with families to see what they want, and I get that information through all of my meetings with superintendents, and then it's bringing those thoughts to the State Department of Ed, to the governor's office, to the legislature, in order to get done what we need to get done. We have a major plan. It's called the CAPSS Blueprint, which is, it started out as a funding recommendations, and I worked on it with Ted Sergi. Ted used to be commissioner. Ted and Kathy Gay, who was an officer of the Office of Policy and Management.
OPM, sure.
And it grew from a funding plan into 30 recommendations for a 15-year plan for education in Connecticut. And I think it's a wonderfully comprehensive plan. I couldn't believe that the governor didn't just take it as his blueprint for education, or the legislature.
Exactly.
But it's not cheap, but it talks about all of the things we need. Consistent funding, preschool, help for EL, help for special ed, that kind of thing. But it also has an accountability piece in there, and says, listen, we'll be held accountable. We'll have public meetings and tell you what we have done with the dollars. And I think it's a great plan. Bit by bit, the legislature has adopted some pieces of it. We were hoping they would just take it as a plan and work on it every year.
Right.
Still have hope.
You think it could work?
I don't know. I mean, we still bring it forward, and CCM.
Absolutely.
Has the ACIR committee of CCM has bought into it and thinks it's a really logical way to move forward.
Okay.
So we're garnering support.
There you go. So you work with CCM, so you probably work with Joe DeLong.
I have worked with Joe DeLong.
Okay,
yes.
Joe's another regular with me.
So. Oh, he is?
Oh, yeah. Joe's another regular. So let's talk about the present day conflict and the ability to listen to others' perspectives with the art of compromise.
Oof. Pete, when you say coming out of the pandemic, I just find a lot of anger coming out of the pandemic. And I find a lot of people on both ends not willing to come to the middle.
Right.
And that is who we are in America. I always thought that we could take both ends of the spectrum and move toward the middle. I don't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers. But together, we can find solutions that will really benefit kids. And I found that lacking in many of the discussions that I've been in some districts with boards and superintendents. And you get new officials on the board, and they want to go a very different way, and they're not willing to listen to what has gone on in the district, and vice versa. And I just think I would love very much to work on that with people, with boards, with superintendents, just to find that art of compromise. And I don't mean to say it's just with boards and superintendents.
Right.
You and I both know it's everywhere right now.
Right, exactly. And how's the school year looking so far because of what's going on with the pandemic?
Well, I think we're doing really well in terms of coming back into school,
Right.
not dealing with the deficiencies,
Okay.
but more dealing with, so what have we learned? And certainly we know, Pete, that we've got to catch the kids up.
Absolutely.
Especially, I especially worry about the early grades in reading and math. It was very difficult on them. But we are working hard to do that. I think that one of the things we're seeing are definitely increased mental health needs.
Yeah.
And not enough services to meet those needs. And I know the legislature is trying very hard to get the funding to move things forward. It's not just about the funding, although that's really important.
Right.
It's the people,
Absolutely.
finding the people
Exactly.
that can help us with our kids. That, you know, certainly some have some serious mental health issues. Some just need a caring adult that can talk with them and try to figure out what's going on for them.
Right. Now, as far as the organization goes, how closely do you guys work with the Connecticut State Legislature?
I work very closely with the legislature, especially with the Education Committee.
Yeah.
With the chairs of the Education Committee, Senator McCrory and Representative Sanchez, and the ranking member. I work very closely with Kathleen McCarty. She's from the Shoreline, and wonderful individuals, really want what's best for kids. And so I bring testimony forward on behalf of the superintendents, but I also call them and talk to them, meet with them. I'm thrilled that some of the things that I've held near and dear for a long time, like, for example, model curriculum. Why is it we all have the same standards that we want our kids to learn?
Right.
Why do we have 169 towns working on a curriculum to implement those standards?
Right.
Why can't we have a statewide curriculum?
Exactly.
And it's a model.
Right.
You don't have to use it, but here it is.
Here it is in case you want to.
Yes, it would save incredible amounts of money. And I'm really happy. I've been trying to do it for many, many years. We're at a place now where we're ready, and the state is going to be moving forward on that.
Really?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
Yes, that's a big deal.
Wow.
It's a huge deal, and I think they're going to begin with mathematics. And
Right.
so, I mean, I don't mean to get off the subject, but you know,
go for it.
the legislature and you know, we work very, very closely with them on a number of things. They're also open to us when we disagree.
Right.
And, you know, we do disagree sometimes. I'll tell you the other piece that's come out of the pandemic that's been wonderful, and that is there's much more communication. I've always had communication with Bob Rader, and you know, and I've always had communication with the State Department of Ed, but I didn't have quite as much with the teacher unions.
Yep.
And I'm having a whole lot of conversations with them now.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yes, it is a good thing. And it's interesting, Pete, how much we agree on rather than disagree.
Right.
You know,
Right.
there's so many things that we are that we see eye to eye on,
Right.
which is nice.
Absolutely. So we've got a little bit more time left. What else would we like to cover?
I would like to say one of the things that, well, first of all, I'm happy to be on the show, and I'm happy
thank
that
you.
you're working with education.
Absolutely.
I would say to you that one of the things I feel very strongly about, can I share that?
Sure.
Okay, so, you know, we talk a lot about equity and we talk a lot about having every child, regardless of race, color, creed, whatever it is, be successful. And I think one of the primary drivers to equity, believe it or not, is early reading success.
Absolutely.
I think that we need, as a state, to pledge to teach every child to read by the end of first grade. Right. And just about every child is capable of it. And we need to really double down. We know so much about the science of reading now.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited because the state is going to do a lot of training in reading. And I do believe that that is putting the emphasis in the place that it belongs. Early reading success is so important. You know, I taught in Bridgeport. I had little kids, you know, in third grade, boys that could not read. And I know how it opened up their worlds when they began to read.
Absolutely.
And it's possible.
Absolutely. Fran Rabinowitz from CAPSS, thanks for some time, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Okay.
Thanks,
you,
Fran.
Pete.
Thanks.
Thank you.
On behalf of Fran Rabinowitz, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks, good night, and we'll see you next time.